All right, hello, and hello to Mojang as well, if you're watching the stream. I suspect some of you are watching the VOD. So, who am I? I'm Ada. By day, I do low-level Java things, performance, that kind of work. And when I get home, I tend to try and break Minecraft. So this talk is specifically about Java Edition, which is the original, probably the most popular version of the game. We're not really interested in Bedrock Edition. It's its own mess. This is a screenshot of subtitles from Bedrock Edition where their censorship is so broken, they censored their own subtitles from Fawn's Prick. So we don't care. That's too broken to exploit. So important context for Minecraft is that it's a very self-hosted game. There are no official servers. It's just you download a jar file, you run it. About 40% of those are modded, so people who have changed the server to improve performance or add new features. But actually by player count, it's probably close to 100% of people are running some form of modded software. And servers can be anything from just you or you and a couple of friends to 100,000 players. And those get into big networks, decentralized, proxies and many servers. And all Mojang has really done historically is authentication, just saying, yes, this player is who they say they are. And with this kind of architecture, there isn't any trust. There's plenty of exploits. Clients can crash servers. There's 10, 20 different ways I'm aware of to crash a server from a client. But there's also servers that can be malicious too. And this is a list of exploits that servers are using or have used in the past against their own players. This is typically anti-cheat or just straight up malice. But these are real servers with hundreds of players at times using these exploits against their players. Mojang tries to patch them, but at least a couple of these are still active and still actively being used. But a few years ago, the 1.19 update was released. It was your standard content update. Nothing too interesting. Wasn't super well received, but wasn't hated. But when we were all updating our hacks for it, we noticed they changed one thing, which was they've added signed chat. So instead of just sending a string to the server, you now send a string and a signature, which was confusing. And they'd added this several months before the update in a snapshot in April. And it's fairly standard. You launch the game, you get a key pair from Mojang, and all of your chat messages get signed. But it wasn't enforced, so it was very unclear why this even existed. We just kind of updated it, added signing support. That was the end of it. But then we get a new snapshot. This was a few days after the release of 1.19, and they'd rolled out this reporting system. Historically, Minecraft has always been, this is your game, do whatever you want, there's no rules. And now we're getting this reporting system where you can be reported for saying fuck and potentially banned, and that was not very popular with the community. We then get a pre-release a few days later, which now implements banning, which makes this even less popular with the community, the concept that you can just be banned from the game you purchased. And important context is this is just off the back of the Microsoft account migration, where historically we'd just had Mojang accounts, username, password, whatever. Now you have to have Microsoft accounts. And this was done in the name of security, but really now it just means when your Minecraft account gets stolen, everything gets stolen. So this is a screenshot of a ban. This is a permanent ban, actually, but for some reason it says 4,166 days. We don't know why. If somebody has any knowledge of what that number means, please tell me, I'm curious. But there was immediate backlash. YouTubers were getting millions of views uploading videos saying, this is the end of Minecraft, we're all screwed, just stop playing the game now, move to Minetest. And this Discord server popped up that was around 10,000 members. That was kind of a mix of people who had genuine concerns and a mix of 14-year-olds who maybe wanted to say things they shouldn't be. But it's important that not everyone was against it. During this time, I spoke to many people who were arguing for it. often I didn't really buy their arguments, and a lot of it seemed to be, this idea that even gay people shouldn't be allowed to say the word faggot. And I don't really buy that, but each their own. And it tends to be a lot of people close to Mojang. Servers that are in Mojang's contacts, they tend to be people who had advanced knowledge of this system. But then we get a release candidate, and Mojang is going fast. This is the fastest update they've ever shipped. The only one that has been faster was Log4j, assuming we ignore some very minor patches. They took 4 days to get Log4j out, and they've only been 8 days into this system. And they're already, we're ready to release this. And a big change here was we now have context. Previously, when you reported a message, you just reported the message, but now we're trying to include what was around that message. And they've not actually changed the system. So messages are still signed as they were before, but now when you report someone, you go to this little menu, you type out your reason, you select the message you want to report, and then you pick a reason. A couple of reasons cut off here, but that's generally what they were after. And then it gets sent to Mojang with 10 messages before and 3 messages after. We don't really know what happens after that point. It's been very opaque. We tried to ask questions to Mojang developers, but they were always like, oh, for security, we can't tell you how our system works, which is famously a good position. And this gets us onto our first exploit, which we called Gaslight. And this was all based on the fact that messages are signed in isolation, and you send a message, you send a second message, there's no cryptography that says the order they happened. So when you report someone, you can just sign a new message and put it in the report, or you could remove one. And we have a very quick video, hopefully. That doesn't work. How do I do this? There. So this is me and the other person I work with. I just ask a question, said, do you want a PvP? And I get an answer. And this is an entirely innocent conversation. But then I'm going to go to report my friend. And I can add a new chat message with this box we added in the corner. So I'm just going to ask, are you breaking Mojang's terms of service, something they're going to take very seriously? I reorder it, so now it's an entirely different conversation. And then I report them. And in this system, Mojang cannot tell that I've changed this. How do I get out of this? Where's the mouse? Escape. There we go. So this kind of sets us up for a new class of bugs that is going to be a recurring theme through this talk, is context manipulation. And this is all down to trust, that you don't know what the client's doing and you don't know what the server's doing. So your best guess is there we go. Essentially, when you report a player, it's your guess at what they saw, but you might be lying, they might be lying, and the server might be lying, and somehow Mojang has to come to a conclusion based on this. So any way we can force this guess to diverge from reality is going to be exploitable. It's fundamentally a social engineering attack. You have to get someone to say something that you can manipulate, but we can still modify the client and the server enough to set that up to be quite easy. So we were just going to sit on this. We didn't really think it was worth releasing. It was so simple that surely someone else would notice it, and they did. This YouTuber, Azistral, published a video which detailed this exploit, but just kind of discussed the possibility of it, whereas we'd built a tool to do it. So as soon as we saw that, we released it on GitHub. And then suddenly, Mojang's not releasing the system. They'd announced a release date and everything, and this was actually the first time in history they've gone from release candidates to pre-releases, going backwards. And this was kind of quiet for a little bit. We got a few updates, pre-release 2, pre-release 3. They didn't really touch anything. But then pre-release 4 and 5 were where the fixes started to land for that attack I just showed you. And they had completely rewritten chat signing. So this uses a Merkle tree. and a blockchain. Because if Alice sends a series of messages, how do we know if one's been removed? And yeah, the answer is we build a blockchain. I know it's not a blockchain, but shut up. Every message will include your previous message's signature, and you build this chain where you can't just remove a middle message to manipulate someone. So if Alice sends a message that's signed 12345, Bob now sends a message that has no bearing on Alice's messages. He just sends a message. Then when Alice sends another message, her previous signature will point back to that first message. And that means we can't reorder her messages, but it's still not enough. Because Alice was talking to Bob, and that's important context. So we can't change the order, but we could say move Bob's message first, or we can move it last, or we could insert our own messages in there. It still doesn't protect a lot. So this is where we get a Merkle tree that would make Angela Merkel roll in her grave. We now add this last seen field. So when Bob sends a message, he acknowledges Alice's message and just says, the last message I saw from Alice was 12345. Now, Alice will send a message, and she'll acknowledge her own message and also acknowledge Bob's message. And this isn't like a list of messages you've seen. It's a per-player thing. So you will only acknowledge 5 players, but you just say, Alice, I saw this. Bob, I saw this. Charlie, I saw this. If there's multiple messages, you don't acknowledge them all, just the most recent one. This isn't very good. The problem is private messages. If I send a private message, then this chain doesn't actually work, because for Charlie and Alice, this does. You can follow that chain, you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there, links to previous signature, you get your next signature, and it all checks out. But if you don't get this, that chain is broken. So we need a better solution, and that is this header packet. And they added this packet that would essentially say, Alice just sent a chat message, but I'm not going to tell you what was in it, but the signature was this. And that allows you to reconstruct the chain even without seeing the message. So now Alice, from Bob's perspective, has sent a perfectly reasonable sequence of messages. And this still isn't great. Our immediate problem with this wasn't even security, it was just how the hell is anyone going to run this? If you're running a 2-person server, this is fine. If you're running Hypixel with 50,000 players online, every single message that's not sent to everyone, which is all of them, has to send this header packet. You're going to be DDoSing your own players. But it did fix Gaslight. We couldn't do that attack we just showed you. And we were getting a lot of questions because this was a fairly controversial system. A lot of people had seen this was possible. So yeah, we were honest, and we said Gaslight has been fixed and it can't be done again. So then 1.19.1 is released. It was a month late because they had to go back to the drawing board for some reason. So we released the second Gaslight, which we promised wasn't possible. And people were somewhat surprised by that. This isn't quite as egregious as the first one, but it sort of combines 2 different techniques we can use to manipulate context. We can still remove and we can still add. The only difference is if you want to add, you need to think about it ahead of time. So removing messages is fairly simple. We're just exploiting that private messages are headers. Mojang doesn't know who got sent the message, they just know a message was sent. So you can perfectly reasonably say, I never saw that message. And see, Alice has sent 2 messages. We can just remove one, and cryptographically, there is nothing they can do to spot that. The only thing you have to be careful of here is if you send a chat message yourself that says, the last message I saw was 12345, and then you remove it and tell Mojang, I never saw that, they're probably going to spot that something's up. So adding a message is a little more tricky, but this relies on the fact that the last seen is per player and not just a list of messages. So Alice is going to send a message to herself. I don't know why vanilla lets you do this, but it does. You send this message to yourself, it puts it in the chat chain. You then send a public message, and that will acknowledge your previous message. So then when Bob sends a message, he says, the last message I saw from Alice was 12345. Now, a vanilla client that's not modified will then walk up that entire chain on Alice's side and pull all of that into the report context. So if Alice reports Bob, her private message gets included, and we can do exactly the same shit I just showed you. So you do need to be more intentional, but for us, this felt very similar. But we weren't done. Then we released, because we'd released Gaslight, we thought, might as well stick to the name, we released Girlboss. And this was just basic private message snooping. This relies on the header packet. And the idea is just, well, you're broadcasting, oh, Alice has just sent a private message, its signature is this. And then you see someone acknowledge it, you know they're messaging each other. This is probably quite useful for factions, like kind of game modes where you need to know if people are communicating. But it also tells you if a server admin, for instance, is watching your private messages. And then we released Guardian, which didn't fit with a naming convention, but it kind of came to me in a dream, and it was like 10 lines of code, so I just knocked it out straight away. And this manipulates context from the reportee's end instead. So if you're reporting someone, if they're running this mod, they pretend to have blocked the entire server. And that means their last seen, they didn't see shit. They don't know anything. So when you report them, that you only get their messages, you don't get anyone else's. And that means there's no context. That's probably quite hard to moderate. So we get this tweet from @Minecraft saying, these exploits don't work. It's so detectable. Please don't use these mods. They don't work, but please don't use them. So this claim kept coming up, the tampering's detectable. And I do have to admit, the first video we released of this new thing was bad. That example didn't actually work, but we were rushing, we made a mistake. But Mojang was kind of saying it's all detectable. And we didn't believe them, but we couldn't find a way to do it. So on our GitHub repository, we put 3 reports on there. At least one was tampered, at least one wasn't. I've forgotten which one was tampered. Somebody please solve the challenge. But we were getting questions at this point, because we've released Gaslight, we've released Girlboss, and we've released this third unrelated mod called Guardian. What, are we not sticking to the naming scheme? Where's Gatekeep gone? And the answer was, I'd gone camping. I was in a field with no internet and couldn't publish the exploit for a few days. And essentially what this was just a way of disconnecting the entire server. You send a message, everyone leaves. And it exploits key expiry. That if your key expires, everyone who connects after you will leave, or there's a race condition in the server connection. So you send the server the key, it's not expired. When you actually join the game, you let the connection complete. It is expired. Everybody will disconnect when you try to message them. Either that or I'm unpopular. And Mojang was waiting for this. We'd heard that they had 1.19.2 ready. So we released our exploit at 2:53 in the morning. And Mojang released 1.19.2 release candidate 1 at 9:07, which means somebody at Mojang had their job be wait for them to release it and then first thing in the morning click the button. But this didn't change much more. It was a very simple fix. So we just dropped another exploit. And this one was server-side. And this worked by exploiting the delete message packet. So the victim, in this case, will just see a perfectly normal conversation. As always, they're being asked if they want to PvP. And they say, of course I do. The attacker, on the other hand, sees an injected message before that. And this relies on the fact that actually a lot of servers don't use this signed chat system. Minecraft chat is incredibly weird and load-bearing. And for a big server that doesn't want signed chat, they're going to send it as what's called a system message. And that is used for people joining the game or you get an advancement. But on big servers, chat goes through that as well. So no one would question, oh, why is my server sending system messages? But actually what's happening in the background is they are sending signed messages to the server, and the server is sending them to the attacker. But because we are deleting the messages immediately, they don't see what's happening. If they open the chat log, the console, they might see it, but there isn't a way for them to see this injected messages. However, they have cryptographically signed that they saw it. So when we report them, Mojang will see this. The player never saw it, but Mojang will. That's a quote. That was meant to be a quote from Mojang saying that they take the server side very seriously, and any way a malicious server can trick a player into seeing a message they didn't, or not seeing a message, would be quite bad. And then things go quiet. Mojang has acknowledged some of these exploits. They've denied some of them. Some of the developers on Twitter have said, if you can break a Merkle tree, then computer security has bigger things to worry about. I'd hardly call it a Merkle tree, and we hardly broke it, but whatever. But then we get 1.19.3 in early December. And this is a bit of a content update. They add some more things. But critically, they've also rewritten the entire chat system again. This is our third signing system now. And they've killed headers. That's probably a good move. It means the system can be used. And instead of headers, we now just have indexes. We just count how many messages you've sent. The client knows it. The server knows it. For a big network, that's still problematic because you have to sync a lot of state between them. But receiving clients will just accept index gaps. And the last seen will now just be the last 20 messages that you saw. Instead of saying per player, it's just, I saw these 20 messages. And so we can still manipulate this, nowhere near as egregiously. But we can still remove messages, and that still feels like a problem. You can have a conversation with someone, they say something that looks a bit dodgy, you remove the one message, that makes it look okay. And this is where we started to consider this case of a silent reporter, where you're talking with someone, but you have an alt account on another screen that's just listening and not saying anything. The problem there is they haven't signed anything. So Mojang doesn't have any evidence in the report to say, oh, Bob signed that they saw this message. They don't have it. So they can't do anything but believe you didn't see that message. Mojang will say, well, we're going to look at like the reports, and if there's missing messages, we're not going to do it. But on any big server, there's going to be missing messages in the report because people private message each other all the time. So does anyone use this? This is the 10 big servers at the minute. Well, not the top 10, but 10 of the biggest servers. None of them use it. What about smaller servers? There are 171,000 Minecraft servers on the internet right now. 95,000 of them aren't enforcing chat signing. Some of that will be intentional, some of that will be there on older versions, but a majority of servers are not enforcing chat signing. 18,000 have this mod called no chat reports installed, and that completely disables the system server side. That number will be an underestimate, because there are many other mods that do this, and the most popular server software won't even report that they have it installed. So that number could be way, way higher, probably closer to the 95,000 that completely disable the system. And No Chat Reports itself has 150 million downloads on the client side, which really says how popular this system is. But Mojang have a server list. It's run by this company called GamerSafer, who a bunch of grifters, a little bit noncy, but they run this server list. And I went through their top 10 biggest servers on there. None of them use it. They have a filtering system, which you can kind of see under that search box. There's a few things you can click to filter for different attributes. I filtered for Java server and has chat reporting enabled. I got 2 results. I tried to connect to those servers and found out they were both not Java servers. So even Mojang can't find people who are using this. Is it being enforced? Well, we don't really know. Mojang are not that transparent with this. We've seen some bans, but a lot of those are attributable to other things. So they have a software as a service server offering. And obviously they have the full chat log. They don't need cryptography to do this. We think a lot of the bans that have happened have been from that. And more generally, they've started to go after servers more. So some of the popular Anarchy servers, for instance, have basically been kneecapped by Mojang. They've just been told, you have to start moderating really aggressively or we're going to blacklist you. Because Mojang have, since 1.6, got the ability to just say nobody's allowed to connect to this server. They just block it at a DNS level, essentially. So what do the rules say? Because we have a list of reporting reasons. What do you actually get banned for? So I went to the Minecraft community standards. And that gave me a link to the Xbox community standards. And that gave me a link to the Microsoft Service Agreement Code of Conduct. And that gave me a link to the Microsoft Digital Safety page. And that gave me a link to the Microsoft Digital Safety Guidelines. And that gave me a link to the Microsoft Moderation Policies, and I give up. So this, regardless of exploits, this isn't a good moderation tool. Because if you're moderating a community, maybe something really bad is happening, someone's in danger, do you want to send that to some trillion-dollar company who's got a chat reporting moderation team somewhere in some third world country they're paying under minimum wage? Or do you want to send it to the server admin who knows their community and knows the people involved and can act quickly? They still haven't given server owners anything good to moderate. They've built this new shiny UI, but they've not actually done anything that allows server owners to have any moderation in their community. Vanilla doesn't even have a temp ban or a mute. You can permanently ban someone or you can do nothing. And in the base game, that's it. And they are still shipping the server open to the internet by default, which those stats earlier are from people scanning the internet for Minecraft servers. The person I got it from is nice. Some of them are not, and some of them are going on trashing servers, abusing people. Mojang have decided, not worth the hassle. But have they fixed the exploits? It's been 4 years. Well, Gaslight v4 still works. The server-side one, sort of. You can't do the deletion anymore. They did nerf the delete packet, so instead of deleting it just straight away, it will now wait a few seconds and then show like a tombstone in chat. So this message has been deleted. The Guardian still works, means you can't include context in your reports. Private message snooping still works. Gatekeep is patched, but it's a crash exploit, essentially, and there are so many of those. But when I was writing this talk, I wanted to check one more thing. And I just wanted to know, one system, how does it work? Because I didn't really have a good grasp on it. So now we have a new exploit. So if I can make this work, I'm going to switch to the 2 Minecraft clients I have running. So, oh god, I cannot see what I'm doing here. On whichever one I'm currently typing in, I'm going to set up this attack. And I'm going to say, hello, I have burned your house down. And the idea here is we're going to say something provocative, something that might make someone have a bad reaction that looks very aggressive. Where'd that guy come from? So we can see that set it up. Now I just say hello. And on the left, they get, hello, I have burned your house down. On the right, we see that it's got that in red. That means that was never signed. So if I now go to, can I do this? If I go here, I'm going to report myself. If I report my chat message, I see, hello, I have burned your house down. I never said that. And if we go back to my slides, I'll show you that what the user sees is this. What Mojang sees is this. And that second message looks very different in that context. So how does this work? Well, we're back on the server side now. You do need to mod the server to do this, but as we said before, this is not a high bar. This is a 14-year-old is angry with their friends and wants to spite them. And this comes from the fact that servers need to be able to modify chat. They want to add ranks, they want to color it, they want to change how it looks. But your client still needs to be able to verify the signed message. And we did have a system for this in 1.19.1, but it was so horribly broken they had to remove it. So this is why we now have this concept of decorated chat. And kind of the canonical example of this is a swear filter. So I've sent a bad word on the server, and now it's going to say this message has been modified by the server. This is what it used to say. Kind of defeats the point of a swear filter, but it's the only way to do this cryptographically. The problem is this is how that indicator works. If you send a displayed message, all it does is it checks, does your displayed message contain your signed message? So as long as it does, you can put whatever the hell you like on the start or the end. You could sign a single letter and extend that to be something really malicious. You could sign, well, I did just hello, add some more to it. And Mojang can't see that. This modified content isn't sent to them, even unsigned. And this isn't noticeable. On a vanilla client, there is nowhere that will show you that this has just been done to you. It shows as unmodified in chat, it shows as unmodified in the reports. And you would expect the reports to be the place you can see what was actually said, stripped down of all the server does. And I had another point to make here. I don't remember what I was going to say. I've run a bit fast, but does anyone have any questions?
Right. Thank you very much. This was cool. I never had an idea this would happen or something. I'm an old fart. Anyone has questions?
Hi, thank you for the talk. I was just curious about how reliable the numbers on slide 63 are. That's the slide with the numbers of the servers running the mods and not running the mods.
Yeah, so how reliable are the numbers of servers running this? It's hard to say. I contacted a few people that are scanning the internet for Minecraft servers, and the two attributes we have, are they enforcing it and are they running this specific no chat reports mod? Those are reported over the ping protocol, so you don't have to connect to the server to see it. How many servers of what's actually running do they have as a percentage? We don't really know. I'd say it probably gets the bulk of it, but the downloads number is reliable. That comes from CurseForge, comes from Modrinth. Actually, I think it's probably closer to 200 million. I don't know if I combine the numbers. But yeah, the numbers are reasonably reliable, but I wouldn't say for certain it's exactly this many because we're going to miss servers when scanning the internet.
Okay. Assuming that Mojang would do a 180 in this sort of behavior, and then let's say that they would. Okay, so how do I explain this? I'm sorry. So assuming that they would do a 180 and, I don't know, get rid of this sort of just chat signing, but still keep the reporting UI, where would you want to see Mojang take it? Like this sort of thing as a whole, be it just for example, the reporting UI, or even just anything that brings safety to the players in a way that servers can actually do things.
Okay, so where would we like to see Mojang improve player safety if they did remove this system? I think this system as a whole is always going to have exploits. I'm sure they're going to patch some of what I just showed you there. They'll release a new update, remove that. But if they completely removed it, I would like to see a similar reporting UI that actually just goes to the server admin. That would be slightly more effort. They have to build another UI for the server admin to see. But I think when they're on this crusade of player safety, they should be considering, like, why is the server open to the internet by default? Why can't people report messages to the server admin? Why don't we have a mute command? A lot of basic things. I think if they want to keep signed chat, the best thing to do is probably just get rid of context. But that might not even fix that last attack I showed you. I think there's a lot of options for them, but they're pretty set on this signed chat reporting system. I don't think they're going to remove it.
In many of the examples you showed, like the report Mojang gets, how do you know how that looks like? So how did you get to the reports Mojang would get from the reporting?
Yeah, so how do we know what Mojang sees? The answer to that is it's just a simple REST API. They ship this authentication library with the client. We modify that to intercept the request and stop it actually being sent when we're developing these exploits. So we just see what they get sent. We don't know how they are displaying it to their moderators. Those are details that have never been shared publicly. Unless we're going to find someone working in like Brazil doing their moderation, we're probably never going to find out. But yeah, we just look at the JSON that's sent to the API.
Some more questions? We have a lot of time.
I heard the name Nodos before already. Like it was like a modded Minecraft client. Are you from the same people?
Okay, so the name Nodus is a reference to an older client by a guy named Sketch in like 2011. This came from me and Guildfesh, the person I developed this all with, having a discussion of what are we going to name our new hack? And we said, oh, well, it couldn't be anything that's already been used by anything notable, because you'd have to do something really good to use like Reliant or Nodus again. And we're like, well, we still have no ideas. Let's just message Sketch and say we're taking the name. And then he was like, yeah, do it. And then we're like, well, we can't back down now, so.
Did you ever accidentally ban yourself while you were trying to figure out those exploits?
Have I ever accidentally gotten banned myself while trying to figure this out?
Yeah.
I have accidentally reported myself and Guildfesh several times. Thankfully, we expect this to happen and we don't test with anything actually bannable. Most of the time, we have a hook in the offlib that just says, whenever you get this, just stop at the point you're about to send it. I am slightly scared of actually talking on public servers because I feel like there's like a picture of my face and my username in the moderation team with like a dartboard on it. And if I ever send a message, I'm just getting banned. But so far, not happened.
Thanks for the talk. How far are these bans actually enforced? Do they just constitute a ban from the chat, or are you completely unable to play online?
Yes, if you get banned from Minecraft, you are banned from online play altogether. There was actually one point where you were banned from single player as well. I don't know if that's still the case. I think they fixed it. But yeah, you cannot play any multiplayer in that case.
A long time ago, when I was still playing pirated Minecraft, you could connect to servers that wouldn't authenticate against the online services of Mojang. Are you also banned from playing on them, or?
Are you also banned from playing pirated servers? No, because you're not using a Mojang account at that point. The banning happens on game launch when it checks, or am I banned? It will also check when it does the authentication handshake with Mojang if you're banned. If you're playing a cracked version, that doesn't happen. So no, you're not.
Hey, thanks for the talk. What I wanted to ask is, because maybe I just didn't read it, I was a bit lazy today, but is there, pretty much permanent bans. So are there a way to appeal them? Does Mojang actually appeal them?
Yeah, so is there a way to appeal bans? The answer is yes. There is a web form. Somewhere through that list of policies I showed you, one of them has an appeals link. So if you're brave enough to sift through that, you can find a place to appeal. And maybe one day someone will read it. We don't know.
So you mentioned that there was some talks with Mojang.
Mm-hmm.
Can you like elaborate a little bit on what Mojang has like communicated with you guys about, be it this or just be it in general, about like where are you guys on the talks with communication, if they ever engaged?
Yeah, so where are we with talks with Mojang? I think we are deeply unpopular with Mojang. I do know someone who's worked there that said our name has come up on Slack a few times in a pretty derogatory way. The communications we've had with Mojang have been in public servers. There are a couple of them that are willing to speak to us. We've had a few arguments on Twitter. We're not on good terms. We they took the kids. They don't like us.
just out of curiosity, is the system also applied to the open LAN thing you can do in single player?
Yes, the system is applied anywhere that is technically multiplayer. So if you open the world to LAN, you can still report someone in there. On their realms, you can report someone. Yeah, it's everywhere that is multiplayer unless the server disables it.
Okay, so I haven't played the game in a while, but what are the known effective ways of suppressing the chat reporting?
Yeah, so how do you suppress chat reporting on a server? It's not that difficult. Mojang have enabled it by default on vanilla. But generally the way it works is the server receives the signed chat message, and then it just strips it of the signature and sends it as like a unsigned message, and then reporting doesn't work.
Do you know what happened? I think on September of the last year, many big YouTubers and streamers got their accounts banned from Minecraft because their community started to report them. Do you know what kind of bug was that?
So some incident in September last year where YouTubers were getting banned. I don't know about that, sorry.
If you have more questions, please raise your arms higher so we can better see them. Well, thank you very much for your talk. Super interesting. Big fat applause for Ida.